Imagine browsing the internet and typing Google into the search engine, a simple action done by millions of people. But when some users accidentally swapped the second letter O with the letter G, the site that opened wasn't Google, but Goggle. It was a deliberate typing error by the site's creator intending to trap as many people as possible. Anyone can make a mistake, but in this case, the price to pay was quite high. Strangely, there is very little information online about this situation and the Wayback Machine, which shows how a site looked at the time of its creation can't locate it for unknown reasons. It almost seems like those who knew about it wanted to move on and erase what happened. Because as soon as the site opened, users slowly began losing control of their computers, realizing it was one of the most dangerous viruses in history, causing the destruction of thousands of computers. The domain Goggle.com was registered in 1998, but it was only reported as a malware site in 2004. What's very peculiar is the scarcity of information on the internet about what happened. The Wayback Machine, which reconstructs old documents and website information, can't trace the page because it's been blacklisted. Only a few forums remain. The real question is, how is this possible? Before 2004, the domain was already registered, but there were no traces of who owned it and what its purpose was. In 2004, the original Google.com website was growing as a search engine, with an increase in active users and consequently online dangers like malicious sites and viruses. Antiviruses existed, but being in the early days of the internet, they couldn't block certain threats and fraudulent websites. In the past, some pop-ups on websites tricked regular people, like adults or those using the Google search engine for the first time. There was also a practice called typosquatting, which was becoming very popular for installing various types of viruses. Taking advantage of users' typing mistakes was the easiest way. At that time, there were many typos for writing the word Google, but it seems that Goggle was the most common mistake. That's why the creators of the site used this name to set up the trap. The weirdest thing is that the domain registered in 1998 doesn't seem to add up. Google started expanding in the early 2000s, so either the domain was initially used by other people and later bought by the malware creator, or Goggle wasn't a strategy but a coincidence similar to the popular search engine Google. In the 2000s, there were already other search tools dominating the internet, like Yahoo, and it's at the end of that same year that Google becomes operational in the way we know it and starts taking its first steps. But while this was happening, when a person typed the site's URL, they could miss a letter or another and end up on a completely different site. On this different site, the person could do whatever they wanted. The most famous site that destroyed thousands of computers was Goggle.com itself. But who bought this Google domain? And what was their goal? Why did this person want to destroy computers? Until today, we don't know these answers, but we will understand how the Google site really worked and why it was so dangerous. The average user in 2006 used Windows XP and Internet Explorer mainly for watching videos, playing games, or browsing information sites. Malware already existed, but few people were aware of it. Operating systems also had few blocks and little security because hacker attacks were not yet popular. Today, we take for granted the blocking of web page pop-ups, the warning of scam sites, and the protections introduced with Windows Vista. But unfortunately, at that time, they had not yet come out. And with Windows XP or even Windows 9X, it was easy to end up on dangerous sites. The website exploited a loophole that existed at the time. The Windows metafile, which was basically an archive of images. Today we have JPG and PNG formats, but in 2006 it was different. Every time you opened a file with a metafile extension, a set of codes ran in the background to display the image on the screen. However, instead of just executing the codes to display the image, the website started running any Windows command. The hacker could exploit this vulnerability and manipulating it, inserting malicious code. When the file was opened, it would automatically crash the entire system. Pop-ups of all kinds would then start appearing automatically. Advertisements, adult sites, virus notifications, web pages opening without consent, and programs installing automatically. The technique is called drive-by download, a type of download where the user indirectly accepts the installation of a program without being aware of the uses or consequences of that program. The site displayed pop-ups to distract you during the short time it took to start the downloads. If you tried to close the pop-ups, you risked unintentionally executing the malicious code and triggering commands on Windows. Reportedly, there was so much chaos and visual pollution that it was almost instinctive to click to close the pop-ups and further worsen the situation, especially because panic leads to instinctive actions. Among the dangers was Spy Sheriff, malware disguised as antivirus. After closing the pop-up, a Spy Sheriff would appear, claiming to have detected an error on the computer. Although it seemed like a useful antivirus, it was actually harmful. To remove the virus, the user was prompted to click a button, but this action gave Spy Sheriff more permissions instead of resolving the issue. Today, it may seem absurd, but at that time, with the internet less widespread, many people were inexperienced and easily fell into these traps. When they clicked on the alerts, the malware could install itself on the computer as if it were part of the operating system. This malware disconnected access to the internet, allowing only connection to the virus site. Once this was done, the damage was already done, eventually requiring a physical shutdown with no possibility of turning it back on because the PC had already malfunctioned. The only solution was to have a restore point to attempt to backup or format the entire hard drive, losing all data in the process. Despite looking like a well-designed virus years ago, creating such a site was not very difficult. The creator may have used a utility called WMF Maker, which automatically created a malicious meta file, destroying computers with all the files inside. Working with this PC or having many things on the computer and simply being forced to format and lose everything. After the storm caused by the Windows meta file problem, Microsoft moved to try to limit the damage. On January 5, 2006, Microsoft released an official patch to address the problem. The patch was designed for operating systems such as Windows 2000 and XP, but it was not until Windows Vista that the problem was finally fixed. However, the Google website gained media attention precisely when McAfee created an online security ad, using the Google site as an example. And in the commercial, it said, "Do not access this site." And what do you think people did? Exactly. They rushed to see if it was true, and that's when some people started uploading their videos on YouTube, accessing Goggle and showing what was going on. People who already had Windows Vista installed on their computers simply experienced nothing when they visited the site, thanks to the security introduced by the operating system. And that's why many said it was a hoax and that the site wasn't dangerous at all. This further worsened things because users still using the XP operating system found their PCs infected. Currently, we don't have the means to find out because everything that was on the site has been removed from the map. However, at that time, regardless of the fact's truthfulness, the generated uproar was enough to annoy Google. It was at that moment that Google decided to close the site. They took legal action to obtain the Goggle domain, but incredibly lost the case. This happened because Goggle was not considered a typo as the word actually exists. Since then, technology has progressed so rapidly that the website has lost its previous relevance. Over the years, the site has changed several times until it became a blog in 2020. However, Google now owns tools that redirect you to the official page if you type a wrong word. Unfortunately, security today is very high. This taught us that if someone discovers a flaw that is easy to execute, and secondly easy to spread, the result is mass destruction. That's what happened in this case and in many other virus cases in the early 2000s. Technology was still very fragile, and people believed in anything, ending up clicking and creating a huge problem.